I'm excited to do that. No, I don't know if you guys all know about this, but it's basically a sales summit. So this could actually be cool if you guys have people that are.
Oh yeah, I'm definitely going to attend.
Yeah, it's a free ticket. So he had this whole thing planned in March, I think it was. And obviously with COVID, he had to postpone it. And it was supposed to be a live in-person event. And so he has some great contacts. I mean, there's going to be a ton of shippers. There's a DAT freight analysis data person that's going to be on there. And then some different people from, different walks of life and trans. So it's on December 11th. So if any of you guys want to get some tickets, I can hook you guys up so you guys can pass them out to your people. So
where's it at again?
He's up in Canada. So, but he's going to be hosting it virtually.
Up north there, the hosers.
Yeah.
I try to stay out of Canada these days.
Well, you don't have to. You could just sign online. It's okay.
Fair enough.
So TJ, you want to kick us off on what we're talking about today?
Yeah. We're talking about the generational, groups and the gaps between them. I mean, I know for sure I see a bigger difference when it comes to drivers. I'd say the biggest gap would be drivers compared to brokers. The two that have the most interaction. But you're seeing it both, and then you could go into those certain sectors, right? The age gap between, older drivers, newer drivers, same thing on the brokerage side. So, it's an interesting topic. It's something that I've always had a lot to say on just because of how I kind of was brought up through, what I've done. And, but I mean, it's something that everybody has can touch on and bring some experience to. So I think it's going to be a good one.
For sure. Sure. So Michael, this was your idea for a topic.
Oh,
so what crafted this idea? Like what popped in your head that you went, I want to talk about this?
Well, it was just cool to have the opportunity to come on y'all's show and do a live show with y'all. So that's really cool. And, whenever y'all had reached out and we were discussing topics, being trucking for millennials, it made sense to want to talk about the generational challenges and some of the things that are also positive about differences in generation in the transportation industry.
I agree with that. I agree.
But it's something we all face. I mean, we work across age group. Age means nothing in transportation is what I found. You don't know who's on the other end of the phone and how much experience they have.
Tony's laughing.
Definitely.
What are some tools or what are some things that you guys use, as your millennials for trucking or being in that age frame or group? What do you use for different age groups? What are some techniques or trainings that you guys implement to kind of break that gap of the barrier between millennials, Gen X, and just, those old school drivers?
Man, so I think one thing that when I'm approaching somebody, like the common denominator in our industry is our industry. So, I think that a lot of times what we're trying to do is figure out, okay, well, what are we doing? Why are we talking to this person? And, to build trust with somebody else, to build relatability with somebody else, we just try to make the connection point. That's what I try to do. I try to make connection points on what can we bond over. You know what I mean? Like what similarities do we have? So if it's a shipper or something like that, like, well, what problems do they have at the moment that we have experience in solving, and taking it that way, it's, as much as we're talking about generational differences and things like that, it's really a matter of building relationships based on the work that we're doing over and beyond, our age group and what we look like and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That's how I think about it.
No, and I think the key word you just said there is building trust. And that comes from any relationship that you're in, whether it's coming from a driver or a shipper or anything like that. So I think if you can build trust, no matter the age group, that's super important. So I'm glad that you said that.
Yeah. And touching on that, moving forward here, I totally dropped the ball, but I'm supposed to start off with a dad joke now. It's how we're going to start every show. And I didn't do it. I apologize to all the viewers out there. I had a lot of requests for it, but One thing I've noticed, with the lighting and everything I've got in here is that people, may think that I'm bald. I'm not bald. I'm balding. I like to think of balding because it sounds more productive. Saying you're bald feels like, saying you lost your hair feels like I could have been more responsible, right? Like, like I lost, you know what I mean? So I'm all about being productive there. But, Tony over there, he's like a good set of dentures. He only comes out at night. So
Absolutely.
Today is a big thing. So let's get rolling.
And also too, I want to add, TJ and I kind of talked. I've kind of been in and out. Obviously we, Nicole, TJ, and Tony, we all kind of came together and kind of formulated this. But I've been going through some times, some challenging times, personally and professionally, that just I kind of had to step away from some things. So I'm no longer at Traffics. I'm setting out for a non-compete. But I still love the industry, and out of respect to an agreement that I made, I'm going to be sitting out. But I've been fortunate enough for the three of my counterparts within this podcast to still, uplift me and push me to continue to stay relevant. So the consistency will be back, and I appreciate everybody that stepped in, and I appreciate, just the partnership and the relationship between the three of us, now four of us, that you guys have done to push me to continue to stay relevant. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Sorry to take away from you guys, but thought it was important to throw it out there. And I just appreciate, this podcast and this relationship and everything that we're doing.
Well, you don't have to be in the business to still have that experience, right?
Right. Exactly.
Experience comes with some age.
What we learn in this industry, that's what's cool about it, because you're constantly gaining knowledge and taking what you've learned in the past and applying it. And that's how you will stay relevant, especially hearing all of us blab, and reading and being involved in all of that stuff. I mean, it doesn't just disappear in a day.
By the time my non-compete's over, we're going to be all automated anyways.
There you go. Then you're gonna have a lot of farm animals. We should start bringing them on the show every day.
Yeah, the farm animals.
Hey, I will bring my goats on here if we want to talk about goats.
You know how you catch a unique goat?
How?
Unique up on it. You know how you catch a tame goat? Tame thing, you unique up on it.
Terrible.
All right, TJ.
Guys, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, sorry guys.
This is great.
This is how it goes.
So this is how we roll. After hours drinking beer.
Yeah.
So let's touch a little bit on what our experiences are. I'll start just because I'm always talking. So, the kind of the way I started was the Fort Wayne office, especially when Circle started, had all the trucks, right? That's what we did. That was our thing. Chicago office started the brokerage side, and I was around a lot of older people, so in the industry with experience. So I got to sit in there and listen to the lingo. Back then we didn't have HR, so it was the old office was what we called the Wild Wild West, right? I mean, you learned not just the lingo, but the harshness of some of that lingo, and but the passion too. I mean, a lot of it, back then was letting it out, but at the same time our yard was there. So I'm just getting into it. I'm making 100 calls a day prospecting clients, but on my way out, Galen, one of our oldest dispatchers out there, hey, come here, young buck, I'm gonna take you over here and show you what a vertical E-track is. So I'm over there by a dry van, learning what that stuff is, and a lot of that comes down to the experience of back then you had to know the equipment, you had to know all that stuff. I mean, it made a huge difference. And now with how automated and how all that is you don't have to know any of that if you want to be if you were to come in as a broker, salesperson. And I think a lot of it has to do with, operations compared to, sales or brokerage. And that I have found such a huge benefit from being around those guys. And then seeing people come in, as we grew that were, millennials or whatever it is, even after that. And it just wasn't the same. The stuff that I knew, that they thought I was like really smart, and really it was just something that I had, seen on the way out from work, and because I was around those people, the things that you can do, the things that, when there's an issue or a problem, you come up with a problem and you're looking for a solution, and you don't realize that sliding the tandems, or just little things like that the experienced, older generation brings to the table compared to just, the technology and what I can do, from that end. It makes a huge difference. And it really gives you like another set of tools in your tool belt. That combination is huge. And so, what I've done is I've really, like on my team, I've tried to bring in, older generation, newer generation, and mix them, put them in right with each other. People try to separate that, but you see a big difference in the maturity level of, your workers too, when they're in there, because those older generation, they don't put up with that type of thing. Right. But at the same time, they kind of feed off that innovative, how quick you can be on the, technology and whatnot. And it's a nice balance, but nowadays as it's moving forward, it's tough to get that from both sides. So trying to provide it the best you can is the best way to go about it. But that's just, from my experience, what I've seen and the value of it.
I think for me, I grew up too in usually small company, and there were always older people in it, and it's always brokerage at first. So I've learned a lot of old school traits, which I value, and I would love to continually bleed these things that I value into every single generation today through whoever I impact in the future, because communication, no matter what generation that it is, it has to exist. And as we continually keep pressing towards automation, it does change that. It changes the relationship piece. So my first transportation job, I told the story before, but I mean, we were headset, the mute button, and like listening to people and talking to people and understanding the tone of when you're trying to book a load, how they're feeling, how they're reacting. You don't get that anymore when you're just posting a load up and someone's emailing you, right? Or a driver's just, you shoot them a message saying, hey, accept my trucker tools. Guy accepts trucker tools and shipment goes on and no one ever talks. And that to me is like great if you want to say, okay, you're a business owner that's focused on automation and just next shipment, next thing, volume. But it kind of sucks. It really does. Yesterday I had a shipper drive 80 miles and come and sit on my couch. He came in here and he was like, I want to know about your business. I see what your values are. I see what you're trying to accomplish. And I like that. And he is moving a commodity that's not a normal commodity for me. But the fact that it wasn't my past, but the fact that he drove here, sat here, explained to me his business, told me about everything I needed to know. It just showed me that that's a relationship person, right? Somebody that is not completely about automation. Sure, there are some things that we need to automate and get moving forward and speed and efficiency for people, but we still need that relationship piece and that communication piece throughout any sort of generation. And I do think having respect for the older generation, as well as the new things, the new automations that are coming, the new technologies that are coming, will benefit everybody. But it's a matter of which ones dehumanize us and which ones let us have a mixture of both. And I remember even when I used to dispatch and talk to drivers, I mean, I would get to know them. I would know my drivers, and I was a broker. I would get this guy on the phone. He'd be like, yeah, I got Bo with me. That's my dog. I would know Bo. And it's like, can a lot of people say that anymore? And so that's the one thing I understand, progression moving forward, but it's just, how much do we really need to dehumanize what we're doing and not know the people that we're working with to really be successful businesses? So
I think, again, you touched on it right there, but having those people around gives you the opportunity to hear them. When you're having an issue, what's the first thing you say? Pick up the phone. Pick up the phone, call them. Nobody wants to do that anymore. And so, talk to them. See, ask them this, ask them that. And, when you talk about being proactive and being out ahead of problems, I'm sorry, but you book a load as a broker and you get on the phone with the driver and talk to them a little bit, about what's going on, how things are going. I had a huge success as a broker because I came from dispatch and I was like, hey, I've been on the as soon as I would say, hey, I've been on the dispatch side, I ran, 15, 20 trucks at one time. I know how it is. Great in and out here, in and out the shipper. When you get to the guard shack, just little things like that, they instantly, separate you from all the other brokers that they just don't trust. And I know they're going to get screwed over by. And so, but you learn that from those older guys. Like that's what they know. You get on the phone and you talk to them face to face, or you meet with them in sales. My owner, he's been around forever. His grandparents had the original truck stops here, and he's been in trucking forever. And I remember my first sales call, I had him on there because I didn't know what I was doing. He's like, I thought I was going to land it. He's like, hey, I tell you what, why don't we get over there and have some beer and wings? We're not too far away from you. I like to press the flesh. We're kind of old school over here. And, I thought it was funny, press the flesh, but that's what it was. I mean, you didn't do a deal over the phone. You shook their hand.
I used it on a couple girls one time when I was younger. It didn't work.
Probably not.
Nope,
before HR.
Yep. Well, when I get back into sales, I will definitely try that one.
But are you guys seeing, I don't know what, Michael, Aaron, I don't know what your main type of freight that you're moving. Are you guys more of truckload? Like, what is the type of freight that you guys are moving?
Go ahead. So, I mean, if it can go on a flatbed trailer or an open deck, we're going to haul it. And if we can't haul it, we're going to figure out someone who can. That's really what we do. And I mean, we have our focus industries, oil and gas being here in East Texas. that is the top industry here, and the one that we've traditionally hauled for the most. COVID has caused that, and I mean, really just the oil and gas downward trend over the last 5 years has really caused us to have to look at differences in our business. But going back to some of the points y'all were talking about across generations, before I was in logistics, I was in our family business. It's a manufacturing company, and in that business, I implemented an ERP system. And then in our logistics company, we've implemented a TMS, and we're now implementing another one right now. And what I've found is it doesn't matter age. Age has nobody actually really wants to deal with technology. That's what I've kind of came to. I used to think that young people were going to be more excited about it. Whenever I was working with much older people and trying to implement that ERP, I was like, gosh, if we just had some younger people here, I think this would be a little easier. Well, then I worked with younger people, and it was the same thing. It was the same pushback. It was the same, this isn't working. I don't want to do that. I want to do it the old way. I have my spreadsheet, whatever. And what I found is that I also don't know if it's maybe even a geographic thing with technology. I think people maybe in certain other parts of the country may be more excited than some of the folks here in laid back East Texas about automation and digitization and things like that. But one of the words that what I really like to use, I like to just use efficiency. But let's just get more efficient. Does that mean we have to automate it today? No, it doesn't mean we have to automate it today. It just means we need to get a little bit quicker than we were yesterday. So does that mean, do we need to switch from, phones to headsets? Does that mean we need to find a quicker software? Do we need to automate a process that's, taking 2 or 3 people to touch? And that's where I like to start. And I don't think that, and I think that's what I found is you can get people on board. But if you just go in there and say, oh, we're going to do everything with technology, I don't think age even matters. I think that's going to be a turn off for a lot of people.
Yeah. And that's the thing is truly change. I actually read a book not that long ago, which was a John C. Maxwell book. It was a leadership book. And change is one of the hardest things for people to process. And people approach it all differently. Some people, it's like they can take bits and pieces of it. Some people need a reason. They need to understand how it's going to benefit them. Yep. Some people, it's truly a process, like stage by stage. And then some people just flat out hate change. But
especially truck drivers.
Yeah, well, really everybody. I don't think it applies to even one group or whatever. It's just, it's challenging when there's change. And with all of these things and how our industry is constantly evolving, I mean, we're always changing. I look at it from 20 years ago when I entered into it. I mean, we had a DAT computer that sat there. You could only post loads on this computer. That's all the thing did. And so then it was like, okay, now we're changing and we're going to get a gateway. You guys remember Gateway with the cows?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we had gateways. And, we got this DAT daily printout that would get emailed, and it was $1 a click. And like, again, this is just such basic things. But I mean, I remember when we didn't have email. I worked in logistics when we didn't have email. And it's just watching some of these progressions of what we're doing. I mean, think about it. 20 years ago, we didn't have email. Now we're talking about having autonomous trucks. So like this jump from like this to like, woo. So I think the change now is just so fast, and we expect everyone to jump on board. Like just so.
I was trucking back before there were phones. There was no cell phones. We had calling cards.
Pagers? CBs. Yeah, give me your CB.
CBs and calling cards.
Give me your CB
Calling
handle,
cards.
Tony.
Well, when I was in Texas, they called me Indiana.
Uh,
I'm good with that.
My dad's, and it still was lumberjack. Because we hauled lumber ties. We owned a sawmill, Bay Lumber and Farms, but his is lumberjack.
Nice.
People don't realize Channel 19. Y'all want to hear some good stuff when you're going down the highway, get on the CB and turn to Channel 19.
And you want to hear a lot of garbage? Do that in the city.
Yeah, but the real question I had, because we talk about millennials. I was born in '86, so I'm kind of on that line of what they define millennials.
Yeah, you're there. You're there.
Yeah,
you're
I'm
not
against
on the
this.
line. I think you are legit.
Oh yeah.
No,
Okay, well, I'll own it.
no.
That's
I was
fine.
87, and no, we're not millennials. We're in that little. There's a little gap between it. It's called.
Denial.
Exactly.
That's in Africa. It's called. I don't know, successful people or something. I can't remember what it is, but I'll look it up.
No. So my question is, did y'all fax back when you didn't have email, or like if you got a load tender to get faxed in?
No, I used to have a traffic manager that would call,
Okay.
and I had to write down every single load.
Okay.
I would write it all down, but I mean, you did have the capability to do that.
And I'm asking because I don't know. Like I'm just saying, like that's a whole different world, even without email. So like I'm curious to know, like, yeah, like when the 3 o'clock spot board hit, was the traffic manager blowing you up and you're like,
there's no such thing as a spot board. I mean, it was your traffic manager. It was based on relationship, and they would call. But I mean, I would move in a day. I would be sitting there writing down 40 of these things.
That's cool.
You know, and doing that. And then we had a T card system. I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with this. It was basically an index card in the shape of a T. And then there was this metal board that had all these slits. And then it would say covered or open, covered, dispatched, on site. And we would
on the wall, the whole thing.
We would move the
Like
card.
Draft.
You would literally like put all the notes on the shipment. You'd see on the T, like say Ohio to Orlando, and we would move it through the thing, but write all of our stuff on it. And then we would send a fax for a Raycon. But I remember when we first got Excel and I made our first Raycon, because it used to just be handwritten on a paper. Our invoices used to be handwritten on a paper. I brought Peachtree software system to my company because they didn't handwrite everything.
That's
cool.
We had an invoice book. It was like a log book. It had carbon sheets.
To your point, Brandon, when they had those, back when they had the gateway basic computers, the real turning point was when they realized that on those basic gateway computers, if they could track Carmen Sandiego all around the world, there's no reason why you can't, track trucks. And that's when everything really started to go in that direction.
Where in the world is
Tony just got rid of his pager last year. Didn't you, Tony?
It's true. I still have one.
You still have it? Okay.
I keep it on. It's sentimental now.
Listen,
honest to God, my dad, when I was in high school, we had a pager, and it was my parents would text me their birthday to let me know every day that they were cool. I didn't have to talk to them. I just knew that if I got 9/12 and 1/31, I knew mom and dad were both good and they were out on the road.
Really?
See, I had a pager, and then you go to the mall and they had the little guys in the middle. You could get different colors, right? You had to change that case out.
Yeah.
But where the game changer came in is when you could leave voicemails. Because then my mom would call me instead of getting a pager. She'd call me and get my ass and be like, "You better get home. Street lights are on. You've been out running dirty." So when the voicemails hit, that's when it was a game changer. I miss them days.
So Michael and Aaron, flatbed freight in my mind, because we all have these perceptions of what is per age group, per like mode. I see that as an old school industry, part of the industry.
Come on.
You could say I do. In my mind, it's like, I'm not saying not advancing. I just feel like those drivers are skilled drivers. They have to, I mean, there's so much to loading, strapping, tarping, like some of that heavy equipment. So do you consider, I mean, is your group of drivers that your guys are talking to, do you find it to be more of the old school mentality, or is that changing? And now, like, what is that like?
I think, you know, we have a yard. So when people are making, you know, pickups and things, you know, as part of being the media guy, like I'd go out there, and part of just not having much freight experience, I want to learn and see what, you know, what their thought processes are. And so most of the time it's going to be your average truck driver, which is going to be around, you know, 40, 50, 60 years old. They have been doing it for, you know, for a long time. And, you know, when I talk to him about how, you know, things have changed from then and now and those kind of things, I think, you know, some of the feedback that I've gotten from drivers has been that, you know, there's younger drivers that they've interacted with, but they just don't have either the patience or the willingness to listen to what they've got to say to them. You know, they're so wrapped up in from their point of view, from, you know, a handful of drivers that have talked to me about it, is, you know, younger drivers, when I try to, you know, teach them something, you know, give them some advice or, you know, mentor them or something like that, they have a, you know, it's kind of like, oh, okay, guy. And then on to the next thing, because they're so caught up in making money, and they've got, you know, money, dollar signs in their eyes, more so than this is a profession and this is a trade and this is a skill. So
Hey,
I think there is like so to answer your question a little bit more directly, it was like, you know, they've got from the feedback that I've gotten is that it is an old school thing, but none of them are like against adopting new things. It's just, you know, when they come to a new thing, especially like a new person, they don't always have the same level of respect that they expect. You know, they don't get a level of respect or a level of you know, camaraderie type thing, like, hey, we're doing the same thing here. You know what I mean? I think there's like some distance there. So I think that, and maybe there's a parallel to, you know, technology too, you know, like maybe there is some resistance to, you know, that old school drivers have to new technology because the game is changing. But you know, I don't know, that's a different topic.
Hey, tell those old guys to keep it up. Keep imparting that wisdom on the young guys, because even if they're not listening, they really are. Because I was that young guy once who wasn't listening, and I dismissed him and carried on. But now I look back and I remembered a bunch of that. That's how I learned and how I got to be an old guy who's still around.
Well, one thing you got to remember too, when you're a flatbed driver, you have to get out, you have to tarp, okay, you have to strap down. You know, you are doing a lot different things with loading and unloading than you are when in a dry van or a reefer. So, you know, people with flatbed, step decks, things of that nature, a lot of people shy away from it because they do have to get out of their truck. They do have to tarp lumber when it rains. They do have to do more physical things that maybe some other drivers can't, or they choose not to do because there's other modes. I think that's a pretty fair statement.
And that's the separation there, is that pride. Like, you know, when we had a Ford lane that was running flatbeds just dedicated all day long. And that, when that stopped a couple of years ago, we were getting $3, $4, $5 a mile out of Ohio on dry van freight. And, you know, I had a couple of guys go over there, but some of them were like, you'll never see me in one of them wussy dry vans. I ain't hauling none of that shit. You know, that bunch of wuss. I mean, they just have this pride. Like, you can't get out of your truck and strap and tarp, and you ain't need to be on the road, you know? And you know, they just had that, like that pride thing to it of like, that's why they did. It's just like guys that run even in the dry van world that run those multi-stop, you know, cabinet loads that, or whatever they are, that where they got to, you know, help driver assist unload. I mean, they do 20 stops and they do every one of them. It's like nobody wants to take them, but that's what they do. And they, you know, they're walking the truck stop, you know, it's just something they have that pride in, because, you know, back in the day, it was hard work. It was, you know, you were in a factory, you were in a manufacturing, some sort of atmosphere, and you were going to remove yourself from that. And you didn't want to just be a guy that sat in a seat, right? You wanted to, that's what it was back then. You wanted to get out, you wanted to help, you wanted to do this. And now you can't even get a driver to get out of the truck to go check in sometimes, because everything's right there. But, it's that gap between, having that freedom to choose and do that. Like what Tony said before, when you look at now with the regulations and everything, they used to have the freedom to be responsible and choose how to run. And, same with, tracking is so big right now. I don't know how many times I have to have a conversation. I just use the same line now, where they're like, I ain't getting tracking. The government's gonna, they ain't gonna know where I'm at. I'm like, buddy, I don't want to be the first one to break it to you. Trump's already got you. He's listening right now, and those websites you're on at night in sleeper berth probably are giving you a little more visibility than you think too. So, they just don't understand, how exactly it works, but it's part of it. I explain that to my owner ops all the time. Like, guys, I understand you don't like it, but this is where it's going. It's going there even farther. It's on the tracking thing. It's not going to stop. It's going to get even more. And so you just got to understand that that's what it's going to be, and join in, or you're just not going to make any money. You're not going to be able to take those loads. There's loads they'll deny, or they won't be able to take because they won't accept tracking. And it just doesn't make sense to me, but to them, it's a pride thing, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. Pride has a really interesting place in trucking, like it's definitely something to be proud of, but it's, it can definitely be a stop. You can be so proud that you think about like, I don't know, that trucking protest that got no traction or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I think that had a lot to do with pride, a lot of like, I want to be recognized and stand for whatever they're standing for. I don't really know anything.
They're calling it off now.
Yeah, they're calling it off, and that's it was kind of an interesting mix of things, because you had like old school drivers on TikTok of all things, calling
Yeah.
trucks, so it's just kind of like an interesting mix. But yeah, like pride, just to say that pride is like an interesting aspect of our industry, especially within the truck driver community, to just kind of like, you have to be aware of. And when we're talking about like cross-generational things, and like, you gotta kind of, you're talking to a carrier, you're talking to a driver, you gotta kind of feed them that, you know what I mean? You gotta respect why they're proud, because of all the experience that they do have.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think maybe that could be a contention point, that, when you got a young broker in a seat and they just hear a cantankerous old man on the other side of the line, they're not making the connection point that this cantankerous old man has been over the road not only all day, but for 25 years all day. And, he's got some things to get off his chest. So just shut up and listen for a second. And you might make a friend out of us, at the end of the day.
I'd rather hear that. I'd rather hear an old man compared to some of the drivers you hear nowadays. That's always a good thing. I got a driver, his name's Dale or Jim, I'm happy, because, at the end of the day, I always say drivers are going to bitch. Let them bitch. Let them go. They're on the road. Let it go. Don't take it personal. Let it go. And they'll be your best friend the next day, but they're going to deliver your freight on time.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to get it done. And back then it was just an expectation. So to them, they're like, why are you calling me? Why are you needing updates? I'll let you know if anything's going wrong. Well, I got to update the customer. It's different now. Right. And those guys that, again, we talked about the tracking, we talked about the routines. I mean, they're back in the day, everything, again, job wise, used to be very routine based. Everybody had a routine, right? There was a lot more dedicated stuff. There was some of the older guys, even in the office, they're just very routine based. And so nowadays it's innovation. You got to fly, you're on the fly, right? Drop a load, grab a load here, do this, all these different things. And it's constantly pivoting. Right. And I think that's one big thing you see too, with like the rates, like bitching about the rates and this, just, they like that routine and having to pivot all the time. It wears on you. But taking somebody from a spreadsheet, like you said, that was one of the biggest things I had to do, was get guys off spreadsheets to get them into the TMS, because now this TMS system can do it all. And when you spread information across multiple platforms, you lose, you're opening up gaps to lose that and have something drop the ball. But they are so set and used to that spreadsheet that it's hard for them.
Yeah. Well, I think it is everyone's job. I don't care how old or young you are, is to not only think of yourself in every single situation. And I think that's where a lot of things fall short for people. It's like, I need you to tell me where you are because I need you to do that. And my customer needs that. And it's like, we have to start thinking a little bit more about the other person and what they have going on. We don't know of every other situation, every other person's personality. So I think it's saying thank you and slowing down sometimes, just a little bit on occasion, to go, I get you. I understand you. Please tell me what it is that you would like to tell me, and just taking that and showing that respect. And I think that's where it could potentially, again, I go both ways. I'm that person that I love the old school mentality. I also love people from the East Coast. I want to be blunt. Let's go. Like, I love that. And some people don't, and it's knowing who your audience is, knowing that you're talking to a driver that's been driving for 25 years, knowing that you're talking to a 20-year-old kid, 22-year-old kid that just graduated from college, and he's stoked and he's excited to bring, something new and I don't know, whatever that is. And just understanding that you just have to respect and listen to all walks of life and take bits and pieces of that and try to apply it. So
as brokerages grew and the brokerage role became, this managed freight, and it became, throw bodies at throw bodies at it. Right. You look at, TQL, a couple other companies that really went to that model of just pushing the younger. It grew the amount of brokers, the size of brokers, and what you're dealing with then is not just a generational gap, but it could still be considered generational, but you've got incentive-based workers working directly with, back in the day, it was, dispatchers were a salary and drivers knew what they were making. It could go up and down a little bit, but now it's like, brokers are like, if I don't cover a load, if I don't, get X amount of gross profit on this, every single load affects my paycheck. There's a lot of owner ops that are getting to that point now, but they also know they got a truck, right? So they could stay in a lane. But for brokers, they don't know how many loads they're going to have the next day. They don't know where it's at. So that little bit of, difference in opinion of, hey, just be honest and let's just push it forward is more like, hey, I got to feed, I got to make money. You know what I mean? Like I got to sell this load. I can't take a loss. It's a drop trailer for 5 hours at the shipper. I'm just going to tell him it's a live load, and then I'll just pay him detention. Well, then you don't realize when he gets there that he wasn't planning on that. He's out of hours, and now it throws the whole thing off, and you screwed it up because you were worried about not taking a loss. And that right there is a huge discrepancy. And Brandon, I know you can touch on that too, between, what it used to be with, driver dispatcher relationship to now that driver broker relationship.
No, absolutely. And you gotta have relationships at each level, and whether you're talking to a driver or your customer, it goes both ways. So I can definitely agree with everything that you said, TJ. Mm-hmm. You're speaking the gospel.
I think there's a certain excitement around transportation right now too. That pride thing that we were bringing up, but then also that appreciation thing. I think it takes the truck driver appreciating the broker appreciating the truck driver. Like, we need to appreciate each other. Like, we're all, y'all were talking about what's the common denominator between all of us. Well, we're all a little crazy, right? Like, we're all in the transportation, we're all in logistics, and you got to be a little nuts to be doing this every single day. But there's something deeper there, I think, for everyone and why we do this. And, for some guys, it may be their family. For some guys, it may be the country. For some folks, it may be just for themselves. But, when it comes to truck drivers, I mean, they're sitting in a truck 10 to 11, 14 hours a day by themselves. So a lot of times they're talking to themselves, or they're hearing the BS that's over the radio or the media, whatever it's putting out. And then, you're talking to some punk kid that's 22, that's just trying to make his commission check at a brokerage. And yeah, I just think there's been a disconnect here the last few years. I know that was what motivated us to become a broker. Was I was having to deal with punks on the phone from some of these larger brokerages that just completely would piss me off. Like, I'm sitting here trying to keep guys moving off of load boards, and I got some guy nailing me over $25, and it's just aggravating. And I think that I'm hoping that, as you were saying, TJ, like, some of these larger brokerages have really just produced a ton of freight brokers. I mean, there's a ton of them now, and whether they're with companies or looking in other industries or looking for new companies, there's a lot of freight brokers now. And I'm hoping that maybe this industry has went through a transformation over the last few years that it's going to be able to grow from. So it was kind of like the inexperience had to get more experience, and hopefully those inexperienced people, the ones that were good and appreciated truck drivers and understand the industry, those are the ones that you're seeing right now on podcasts, right now on LinkedIn, right now on Facebook that are spreading the good word and saying this is a good industry. We need to make it a better industry. And I think those are conversations that were probably being had in truck stops 10, 15, 20 years ago, but now it's hitting social media. And it doesn't matter your generation. We see old drivers, young drivers, old brokers, new brokers. We see all types of people now on LinkedIn. I mean, we're all connected with a lot of the same people, and it's all different age groups. So I think right now the transportation industry, maybe the last 5 years, has went through a transformation, and I'm actually really excited to see what's going to happen over the next decade.
Think about the growing pain there, though. So it starts with leadership. So you get a kid that comes in, he's really good at brokerage. He's slinging freight, and he gets a little cocky, and and you hear him over there bragging. Yeah, I told him this, and I'm the first one to walk over and shut it down. No, we're not doing that. I get it. I used to think it was cool too. Yeah, we all think, yeah, good trick. It's not going to happen. All right, because I'm telling you right now, you're going to get a reputation. It's just not what we do. That's leadership has to do that. But when you're throwing that many people into the mix, right, into the broker, somebody's got to manage those people, right? Who's doing it, right? It's maybe the top producer, right? For every 20 people, another guy has to step up. Or 15, 10 people, another guy has to step up, and they're not ready, and they're not leading, with bigger and bigger and bigger. Now those core values that used to trickle down, that you knew, you've got satellite offices all over. Every office has its own type of core value, and their way of doing things, and there's none of that cohesion of like, this is how we do things as a company. It's just, this is how we make money. And you've got these inexperienced people coming in to be management who think it's funny, right, and think it's cool to do all these things that they're not supposed to be doing, and give the brokerages a bad name, because that's that growing pain, right? It happened so fast. There wasn't that. So the more education, the more those people get called out, right? I've always said, like, when there's negativity in a group, and I've always done this, even if you get people on board with you and you start making positivity a cool thing and like the right way to do things, they start feeling left out. You start pushing them out. Right. You don't hear from them anymore. They're not out bragging about doing this and that, Tony, remember at the beginning of COVID that the broker that put out that post that just got absolutely hammered, putting out a post. Yeah. I remember. That was a thing that people did. It was like as brokers, oh yeah, that's what we do. Now it's like, you do that, like you're getting hammered.
Oh, I saw one
fired like that day.
Yeah. I saw
fired too. Yep.
A broker that like the actual carrier posted the email, started screenshotting emails on this guy. I mean, I don't know if we're talking about the same thing.
I think so.
I couldn't believe it. I was like, what an asshole. Like, who would ever have someone like that on their staff? Because this guy was just terrible to this carrier, like saying, yeah, I make this much money and, you should be bowing down to me type of mentality. It was like mind blowing.
Well, Brandon Bird was his name.
Who?
Oh, yeah.
Brandon Bird, because I always got him and you confused. And he was the one that said, the carrier that I don't give a shit. I pulled you off. I got a cheaper carrier. I average $200K a year. So I'm not anyways.
Yeah,
that was the post.
And I like what you said, TJ, about core values. And it's like it calls to mind for me of just like, if there is a gap between brokers and drivers in our industry, it's almost going to be a generational gap too, because of the average age of each one of those professions. And it's like what you said about core values that I like is that it's like if the values of a brokerage start to stray from the values held by those proud truck drivers that are moving America's freight every day, the further across, the further that gap becomes, the worse the conversation's going to be. And it's just like, it shows how important it is to kind of create this kind of like Venn diagram of like, what can we agree on, what's important, and how can we come together to make this happen. But if you've got a boiler room type of culture in your brokerage that's all about, crushing numbers and all this kind of stuff, and you don't have anybody that actually values the drivers that are going down the road, that they actually pass on the way to their office every day, then you're gonna have a terrible problem.
Yeah,
it comes down to integrity, and it comes down to doing the right thing and treating people the right way. And it's really simple: do what you say you're gonna do, and if something happens, fix it and communicate it. And that's the problem with any communication, whether it's broker, driver, millennial, Gen X, old school, is just the dropping the ball in communication. You know, it's pretty simple. Do what you say you're going to do on both ends. Be respectful, have integrity, and you're going to build that relationship. And I think that's where things happen is that brokers, I mean, we're the scum, right? The scum. And that reputation has been built because of some of the big guys, because they've let people treat drivers like crap. I'll say it, like shit, right? Mm-hmm. They treat them like they're the scum, and they don't really realize that, you know, it takes both sides of a driver and a broker to perform for a customer. You know, so one of my first mentees one time was sitting next to me, and he had a driver that was probably 3 days late, half a claim on his truck, and they were going back and forth and arguing. And he hung up the phone and he said, "You're just a stupid driver." Well, it really pissed me off, and we were on the floor, and I stood up, I pulled him aside inside a private setting, right? And I coached him on it, and I said, "Don't you ever say that about drivers, especially outside in an open floor." And he was upset, and he goes, "Well, I didn't mean it. It came out wrong." And, you know, I kind of explained to him, like, these drivers are important to us. You're going to get your bad apples. But I think that, you know, it was a good coaching opportunity. And if you can set that expectation, you can set that leadership at the floor level, because it's going to happen. Okay. We're in a dirty industry, but if you can set that expectation and you can have leaders that will coach how to treat people, whether it's drivers, millennials, or old schools, then you're going to grow a successful business.
I agree.
You need to have that leadership and that philosophy, that mindset that values people, whether you're in trucking, brokerage, shipping, whatever it is. You need to have that culture that values the people, because you can't do it alone. You're not going to be the greatest shipper in the world if you don't value truck drivers and brokers. You're not going to be the greatest broker in the world if you don't value truck drivers. I mean, and the young guys need to respect the old guys' wisdom and experience. Old guys need to respect the young guys' drive and desire to get into the business. We need to get in there and like each other's the positives that we bring to the table.
Integrity is step one. I mean, that's like saying, the good guy the nice guy never gets the girl, right? Well, that's because he's nice, but he's nice, but what else does he bring to the table? Right. So, if you're gonna have integrity, that's step one, right? You can have integrity, but because you have such integrity and you're not digging in and learning about the other side, learning how to do things, you don't make any money, right? And you don't end up making it because, you had integrity, but you didn't have a way of making that money. And that's learning. That's learning the other side. Like, it's a lot easier to have integrity when you learn about and you ask questions about drivers. You know who you're dealing with, what they're doing. I had a guy today that we had a load that you drop your trailer night before by 10 p.m. It's ready by 9 a.m. the next day. That's a hard sell, right? It's hard for a new broker on how to sell that, especially he was on the DAT board and stuff. I said, and he's like, I'm just going to tell him that it's a live load, to try to sell it. And I'm like, that's the easy way out. That's not knowing what drivers are doing. I tell you what, right now, if that trailer has to drop tonight and it'll be loaded in the morning, go on right now and look at trucks that are posted for tomorrow. You know why? Because a lot of trucks that are posted for tomorrow are actually empty tonight. The reason why
preach on. They're
not posted tonight is because by the time they get empty, they're going to have about an hour and a half left on their clock. They don't even want to worry about trying to find a load to go get loaded in time and then find a safe place to park. So they're just going to post it up for tomorrow. But if you get a hold of that guy and you find out he's empty tonight, all he's got to do is go drop his trailer. You know where the truck stop is right down the road. That takes, 30 minutes.
He'd love it. He doesn't even need to leave tomorrow.
You could not learn and you could not be innovative and learn those things by knowing what hours and how dispatchers work, or you could just do the lazy way and sell it as a live load and then deal with a pissed off driver, have to pay, a layover because you just wanted to cover the load.
Yep.
See, and I love that too. A lot of people don't dig in and think outside the box and they just think they see black and white, and this industry is gray. I do want to say that the person that happened, I got a mess going on here. The person that happened with my mentee, instead of firing him like a lot of people, did, he is actually very successful. Continue to grow as a human, continue to grow as a person, and we're still very close today. So in case he watches this, I just wanted to throw that out there. That way he didn't think I was just hosing him.
So one of the things I was going to say too is like saying thank you to people. I mean, I think that is a huge part of it too. So like I listen to my people when they're talking and it's like, okay, you deliver that load. Can you send the POD? Thank you. And I was like, or he didn't say thank you. That's what I was trying to say. And I was like, you didn't say thanks for delivering that load. And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, think about it. You just asked someone to run his ass across the country. He got there. Probably no one was happy to see him. They took whatever part it was that they needed, and the dude's on his way. It's like, have some compassion and say, thank you for doing that for us. Thank you for being on time. Thank you for helping us out. Thank you for getting on our tracking. Dude, it's so hard to, like this, that. Be appreciative, tell people thank you, and genuinely, no bullshit. You can't just be like, thanks, man. But if you show that you genuinely appreciate them, that goes a long way.
And I'm gonna take care
Absolutely.
of you is one of my biggest ones. That's another one. Like when things happen, right? Something's going wrong, and you could fix it with money, right? You could figure it out for them, but the driver just doesn't trust it, right? They've been screwed over so many times, and
Right.
I'm just like, listen, man, I'm gonna take well, what do I need a rate con? Just let's figure this out. I'm gonna take care of you. All right, I promise I'm gonna take care of you. We'll work on that. Let's figure this out here. Nobody says that. Nobody says I'm gonna take care of you. Like that's just something that when they hear that, they already know that they don't hear that very often. They either get shut down or whatever it is. But I tell my own drivers, another driver, a broker carrier, whatever it is, hey, I'm gonna take care of you. We'll get you taken care of. Okay, I promise. But let's take care of this first. And that's another line, just like what you said, saying thank you is huge. Thanks for helping us out.
I'm not moving my truck until you send me a rate con, TJ.
Listen, Brandon, I get it.
I'm not moving my truck. I'm not moving it. You send me a rate con, or I'm holding it hostage.
Listen, we got to get this load rolling. I'm going to take care of you on the back end.
I'm not delivering your load.
I'll send you an email. Okay, so it'll all be typed up. You'll have it in writing right there. Okay, let me get to that right now. But let's get moving. We got to get you on the road. Okay, because what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to help you avoid a rate reduction because our customer may give us one. So let's work
I'll write a review. I will write a review
together on this. I'll take care of you.
I'll report you.
That's you, Tony.
I just need my load shipped. I need it delivered. My customers calling.
You guys, we have 5 minutes left. So I'd love to hear kind of some final thoughts in regards to this topic. I mean,
hey, real quick, let's guys talk a little bit about your podcast. Just a little, kind of, you could close down the topic here a little bit, but then talk a little bit about what you guys do and how it works.
Yeah,
absolutely. Tell us.
Closing remarks.
But just what I was going to say to kind of Nicole's point was, I think it goes to the leadership in the company. So are you passing down that compassion to your employees? Are you passing that down to the folks that you manage? Are you saying thank you to them? So in turn, are they saying thank you to others? Are they learning that from the top down? And I think you can have one person in the company that's doing that, but if it's not coming from the top, it's never going to spread throughout the business. And also you have to say, who are you bringing in your company? Are you trying to build a culture of that? And what's your target? Is it to make cash, or is it to build a positive culture and move freight across the country? So I think it comes down to leadership in these especially smaller businesses.
Tony's favorite word, leadership. Okay.
Yep.
Aaron?
I mean, to just kind of wrap up thoughts, like I really appreciate the conversation. I think we dove into some really interesting ground we hadn't covered before. So it's been fun. And I think it's going to be a tale as old as time. It's going to continue to be this for a long time. It's just I think it's important to have these type of conversations on a regular basis, and then I'll always apply it to our work every day. It's like how many times can I say thank you tomorrow? How many times can I appreciate a truck driver again tomorrow? When I go into the office, like taking some notes and taking some mental inventory of just like maybe just kind of gamify it a little bit and just saying like, hey, how can I outdo my level of customer service and empathy and relatability with these people that are a little different than me. I just don't know, how can I learn more instead of judge, more and assume that I know what's going on. So, but other than that, millennials.
Talk to a driver just to throw on that. Go in and see, make a goal to talk to drivers. I'm telling you, it's where I've learned most of my stuff. Every load that you run, and you should talk to that driver somehow. You never not talk to him. Call him. You know what else it does is that you talked earlier, customer service too. You start to learn. Hey, how's everything going out there? Everything going all right? Yeah, I'm still all the time. Well, actually, when they loaded this, they came out, they did this. They're gonna walk. I mean, you're learning about your customers' freight. It's huge. It's a big thing.
Yeah.
I want to talk to drivers.
Yeah,
Great.
makes all the difference. But
podcast.
I'm good. I mean, so trucking for millennials, me and Aaron, Michael and Aaron. By default, I'm Michael. But we love our podcast. We love our listeners. It's been a really cool experience. It was just an idea at one point that to start a podcast. It was something that I was passionate about, and then Aaron came on board, and it was something he was passionate about, and he was here for a couple of months. It was like, hey, we still hadn't started a podcast yet. We need to do that. And so Great American Trucking Show in Dallas, just a couple hours away from us last year, we launched the show. And really the idea behind it was I've just made a lot of mistakes in my young career. And I felt like I wanted to share those experiences, whether it was with people, whether it was with hiring, whether it was with customers, vendors, carriers, shippers, truck drivers, whatever it was. There's just so many things that I've done wrong in my time. And I thought that why don't we try to get some of those experiences out there so others may not have to go through those. And then let's talk to people with experience. And another thing is it's a great title for Trucking for Millennials, because if we say something stupid or it's wrong, well, hey, we're millennials. Who cares? We're expected to say that. So it's just we wanted to bridge the gap in the industry and say, hey, there are a lot of young people in this industry, but we'll be the first to say that it's the experience and it's the older generation that we have to learn from if we really want to carry the torch and make this an even better industry in the future.
You guys getting some old guy guests?
Oh yeah, we got a lot of old guy guests.
We don't
It's been great.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Put Tony down on the lineup and talk about old.
I'm there.
I mean, you can be a guest if you want. I mean, we can go ahead and get you booked. But just to give an example, like one of my favorite guests over the past year and a half or whatever it's been has been Ratman Roden. He caught my attention on Instagram because in between taking pictures of his hotshot loads, he takes a picture of his 2019 Lamborghini Huracan. And I was like, what is going on here? Like, where is his freight? You know what I mean? Like he's just got an excellent story about, he's actually a business owner, owns a metal company, and then hot shots on the side. So it's just like a really interesting, he's an interesting person, and it's an interesting story. And it's been great to connect with so many different people across the spectrum of our industry, and just to learn their story, learn how they got in, and learn why they are going to commit and continue.
That's awesome. Well, if any of us can ever help you guys, or if you ever need any guests or anything like that, let us know what we can do to help. And I've missed you guys. This has been fun. I'm glad you guys allowed me to be on too.
Yeah, I mean,
I have to subscribe here soon.
I'm colorblind, so finding out that Brandon was coming on, it was just right out of the purple, that I found out. So,
all right.
Well, we're gonna end on that note, TJ.
Yeah.
Tony,
Do you want to put the
Ryan,
panda head
Nicole,
on? Do you want to put the
fun.
panda head on before you go, or the koala?
Oh, it's in my trunk. I got a Chewbacca mask too. So I wore
Normally we end the show with TJ being a awesome koala.
It's a koala, yeah. It's
Great.
the koala freak, yeah.
Completely
Nice.
great. He says he's not a millennial, but yeah.
I'm not. I'm gonna look it up. I'm gonna throw it out there.
Well, thank you guys
Some
again.
millennial.
Yeah,
Appreciate
thank
it.
y'all.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Y'all have a good evening.
Bye.
You too. Thanks, guys.
Bye, Tony.